Good evening, everybody. I am the Cynic. Do I think women are evil? No. No, I don't. Why? Because evolution and genetic supremacy have made them the way that they are, as evolution and genetic supremacy have made men the way we are. Now, do I think women are compatible with a man's notion of love, compassion, caring, and nurturing? Again, no, I don't. And I'll go on into that a little bit later. Patriarchy has been the primary hierarchical method for human beings since our beginnings into the status of Homo sapien, and before. The reason for this is obvious. The women are the ones who become vulnerable in pregnancy, and so must be on the constant lookout for a man of higher status whom can both protect/provide for her in terms of material goods, as well as superior genetics to propagate the next generation to have a more survival probability than she did herself, to have a higher survival probability than she did herself. We've all been over this time and time again, from Barbar to Stardust, all the way down to me. Outside of evo-psych and behavioral genetics, and the evidence therein, reason has been the primary tool for our use in coming to this conclusion. While it may not be 100% correct, I'll change my stance should sufficient evidence arise to be worth adhering to. Until such time, this is my, as well as many other like me's, view on the relationship between men and women sexually. That being said, a few of the primary issues that MGTOW has had with women in the past is their hypergamy-based nature, sexually selective contradictions, infantilized emotional accountability factor, and preferential treatment within society. No Holds Barred made the argument on my last video stating that evo-psych and cultural influence are closely related to the point that they are practically one and the same, the former being long-term influence and the latter being short-term influence. I'll be explaining for a moment why evo-psych holds a greater sway than the cultural controls do. As anybody who's ever been to the movies will tell you, we've seen countless shows about the loser quiet guy with no skills or personality to speak of continually getting the girl of his dreams at the end of every film. This has been going on for at least the past 20 years. And before that, it was the gentleman who was portrayed as the supreme choice for any woman to copulate with. The fathers chasing off bad boys with a shotgun and informing their daughters that the nice boy down the block would make a much more suitable husband. These cultural factors have failed to pull women from their bad boy baby rabies mindset and instead push them farther into the realms of impregnation and child-rearing of men who are less than qualified parental figures. So, when hundreds of years of behavioral-altering actions taken by patriarchal father figures is only met by female rebellion and assertiveness, what is to be done at this point in time? The hoped result of keeping women with good men has failed to come to fruition, and has left any man with an iota of non-simping induced self-respect or the ability to reason with any sense of morality and self-preservation only one choice. Never make yourself vulnerable to women. Why? Because emotional vulnerability isn't so much a tool of intimacy, but a tool for women to use against men in order to keep him both around and in line. It is his reward for the services he's given to her. And it isn't one that lasts very long. Though the man she's shown such favor to will try everything in his power in order to receive it again. To believe this strategy of mate retention, love, is a pitfall for men, as our evolution has only installed this in us for the sole sake of assisting in child-rearing and provision, regardless of cuckoldry or illegitimacy. And as many of you know, men feel a great pain upon a woman's betrayal in such a way. Why? Because of our desires for emotional, exclusive intimacy. Women aren't caring beings whose purpose is to nurture men. They are beings in search of genetic supremacy, after all, and in their current mind, bad boys willing to commit physical acts of aggression on their behalf are signs of genetic superiority. After all, a woman of good breeding who stays with a man of ill breeding due to love would lead to a genetic dead end through his genes compromising her own and giving their offspring a lesser start in life. Of course, men look for the same, but we're talking about women right now. Men cannot blame women for this any more than men can blame a lion for violently killing and devouring a gazelle. It is simply how nature works. It is what has brought we as humans to our current state of being. Our intelligence, survival, brain development, mortality rate, and all other factors were cultivated through women's sexual selection of men and, to a degree, men's sexual selection of women. Hard to hear, I know, but that's simply the evolutionary fact of it all, at least from my reasoning. However, post-birth, women are far more a detriment to a man than an asset in terms of a man's emotional health and psychological well-being. As I've said before, most men in MGTOW take exception to a woman's nature such as hypergamy and emotional infantilization. When such notions are in place, the idea of loyalty and consideration are conditional only to the man's utility to the woman. MGTOW aren't happy with this arrangement, so we've chosen to abstain from these kind of relationships, rather than be used and disposed of when our provisionaries have been exhausted. As I've said, it doesn't make women evil, but it does make them counterintuitive to our own emotional interests. And that, my friends, is what we should be looking for. The interests of a man's physical, emotional, psychological, and financial well-being. Some people will say spiritual, but I don't believe in spirituality. So, where do we go from here? Where do we, as men going their own way, go from here with this knowledge? Emotionally shutting down, like the route I've taken? Emotional connections with other men instead of women, like Nico, CS MGTOW, or the mayor. Perhaps we wait for the type of artificial intelligence that we can emotionally connect with, finding the closest thing to platonic unconditional love that will most likely ever be found outside of dogs or family. That, gentlemen, is the million-dollar question. But make no mistake, such love will not be found within women, simply because evolution did not design them to be that way. Of course, exceptions to all rules abound. I am the Cynic, everybody. Have a nice day.